Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next Ed Collab gathering, the K-12 online conference, which we've called many, many things, PD in your PJs, EduJoy, and I truly believe it's all of those things. And today, more than ever, we need to be together. So I hope that this is an opportunity for you, for those of you who are already educators who are working together and lifting each other up. Perhaps you can learn from this day, from the many wonderful opportunities to connect with educators across the world, really. It's so wonderful to see how many people always become engaged in conversations with us. And we have some great sessions lined up for you today. I'm thrilled to be able to gather with you here to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is book love. And so we're going to spend some time together. We're going to be talking about Kidlit, Book Buzz. We're going to be looking at some opportunities for you to explore the ways in which book love is perhaps present in your building already, or perhaps ways you can reignite that passion for book love and for reading and sustain really that love of reading, which is so essential right now. So we'll be looking at some additional tools and some titles and some tips. We'll be looking at ways to engage our community of readers. And I hope that you will join me in sharing your thoughts, your comments, and as things resonate with you, or perhaps if you have new ideas that you'd like us to learn from, please tweet with us and along with us using the hashtag #TheEdCollabGathering. So as I mentioned, we have an agenda today. We're going to be looking at quite a few things together. We're also going to be looking at some new tools like Bookalicious, and yes, talking about Bookmojis. If you haven't already heard the buzz about this online resource, where we will be exploring that together today. And I'm really thrilled and honored to have some special guests who will be joining us through some video clips, sharing their tips about books that help to invite conversations and encourage a passion for reading, a passion for learning, and for living. So I'm excited about all that we'll do today. And I wanted to mention that we are viewing all of this today being recorded so that you can archive and share at your convenience. And I'm probably going to be experimenting with some high tech, or at least for me, high tech tools today, and trying to alternate back and forth between some of the live conversations and some of the videos. So bear with me as I do this, and let's hope for the best. Okay, so let's get started. One of the things we have to talk about when we talk about book love is thinking about the people who've done this work, who've really made it their life mission to talk about the need and the real essence of what reading instruction is about, which is about real reading. Real reading begets real readers. And so when kids are engaged in reading and find that love or that hunger for reading, I think it's something that never leaves. And so we're fortunate to work alongside of many teachers who believe the way that we do, that book love is a real necessary part of everyday teaching and learning. And we have the opportunity to spread that joy. And I know that there are people like Penny Kittle and Donalyn Miller and Lester Laminack and Ernest Morel and Alfred Tatum, and the list goes on and on. And I hope that today is just a snippet of the conversations that continue back in your buildings and with your colleagues as you continue to focus on the essential elements of book love and reading and the power of reading. On that note, I have to give a shout out and mention to the amazing Terry Lassane, who unfortunately we lost this year, Professor Nana, but her work will live on in touching the hearts and minds of students and learners of all ages. And I think Terry said something really essential, or continues to say in the presence of her work, about how we have to target the minds and the hearts of kids. And thinking about that, all the elements involved in her acronym for target, trust, access, response, enthusiasm. These are really essential elements for book love. And I'm sad that she will no longer be with us, but her work will live on. And I know that we have a book on the way that she co-authored with Donald Miller, The Book Whisperer, and we all have that to look forward to, The Joy of Reading, which I believe will be out in 2022. So even that gift will be coming to us, another gift from Terry. And so I feel there are many educators in this space that work towards providing opportunities for us to not only see the value, but to see the research and the necessity and the significance of book love. So on that note, I know that at Scholastic, they have done several surveys over the years about what makes frequent readers, what are the most powerful predictors, or what is, really essential in terms of independent reading in school. And we have this research. We have this research that provides the this important evidence, but the evidence really comes from the hearts and minds of our students. And we think about it, it's not rocket science, right? We need to create the space, the time, and the opportunity for kids to have books in their hands that they can and want to read. So of course, that impacts access, and we need an abundance of books. We need full-time librarians. We need digital libraries. We need access to books so that kids are surrounded with books and the importance of books through home and in schools. And so I really think it's interesting because we can look at formal surveys, we can also look at the research, but we can take the time to just stop and ask our kids, what does your best reading life look like? And I think it's important as we engage kids in this conversation that we find out not only about what their interests are, but what are their best reading live moments. So for example, are we considering the time, the spaces and places that really impact the most optimal environment, and when it's within our power to try to create those spaces during the day in our classrooms. So as part of our time today, we're going to look at some examples that illustrate this book love in action. We're going to look at some literacy snapshots that showcase things that are happening in classrooms, teachers who are doing this work, and hopefully some ideas that will resonate with you and will also give you an opportunity to think about adopting or adapting. So I'd like to go back to the screen to share for another moment a visual that showcases some kids who really are illustrating book love. And so a tip here would be thinking about how we are providing access to the books that students want to read, the recommendations, the favorites, their ideas of books, book stacks or text sets that speak to their hearts and their minds. So in this particular example, you may notice that on the far side of your screen, you see some books wrapped in a grab and go stack. That's something that I actually saw for the first time in my public library a few years ago. And it really inspired me to get kids to think about what are those books that they would put together. And so the kids are involved in creating these stacks through our classroom libraries when we're fortunate enough to have an abundance of books, or even online to start creating wish lists and ideas for books that they'd want to read. So if you think about creating a stack or creating an opportunity for kids to recommend books, some of those images demonstrate kids the hooked on books where they leave at all times their comments about books they can and want to read. And so I think it's important and I think it's exciting because we can give kids an opportunity to give us a glimpse into their reading lives and to think about who are the authors that they love. Shelley Harwain, another wonderful mentor in this work, talks about how kids really need to know authors. And when they do, it's a true sign that they have been touched by the bug of book love. And so we need to expose kids not just to text, but to the authors and to who those people are behind those stories so they can have reading and writing role models. I love the ideas in this work with administrators as well. And so I want to give a shout out and a picture here to show, some other ways to tip to make our reading lives public for all community members, excuse me. And some of us may find this to be examples of things that you already do, or maybe it's new food for thought. Like, are you carrying books with you everywhere you go? Are you using email signatures to sign off with what you're currently reading? Are you creating newsletters? Or do you have a designated area in your school where you can have a showcase or a bookshelf of teacher recommendations or books that are kids are buzzing about in the moment? Are we taking time in our faculty meetings, in our grade level meetings, to do book talks? These are all easy, low-tech things we can do. And then here's an image of a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Laquita Outlaw, who is the assistant curriculum of instruction in Bayshore. And she gave me a tip a while back about using our conference lanyards, which is such a simple thing I hadn't thought of. We get so many conference lanyards. And so I've stolen this idea, and I do walk around in schools, and sometimes I'll have like an ask me about, and depending on the grade level that I'm with that day or the group of teachers that I'm working with, I may showcase a particular author that I want them to ask me about, or I want kids to know about, or I might have books that I've read recently that I want to talk about to different kids. So here you see Starfish by Lisa Phipps, and here you see Muted by Tammy Charles. So I have a kind of a middle and YA example for when I'm with older kids. And I forgot to mention on here, I'm showcasing the work of Sonia Furuki, who is one of our guest visitors that will be joining us today. So I hope some of these ideas are getting you excited. I'm a total nerd, a total geek. You know that about me if you've participated in any of these sessions or any of the webinars that I do. And I just can't help it, but I do believe that when we are enthusiastic and excited about this work legitimately, and you just know that, you just see that in the teachers and the children, and the love for book has ripples, right? That book love has ripples, and it is, I believe, very contagious. At least I hope it is. And I've seen it be contagious in the schools that I work in, and I know that that's happening in your buildings as well. So I had mentioned that we're going to have some guests, and I don't think I shared the image of those guests, but real quickly so that you'll know and you'll have an opportunity to perhaps look back together with colleagues or even with your students to show them some of the behind the book stories that we can learn and gather from people like I mentioned, Sonia Furuki, Charles Smith Jr., Catherine Otoshi, Matt De La Pena, Shital Sheth, and there's many, many more. And I'm going to share some opportunities for you today to think about when you're not able to actually bring author visits or individuals in live in that way, where we can go to resources online to access videos, and really through the generosity of many of these creators, opportunities to hook kids and engage kids in another way. So can you tell I'm excited? I can't help it. All right, so I mentioned Get Caught Reading, and I didn't give a shout out to one of the key, or I should say the original ideas or creators of this idea, Get Caught Reading. In 1999, I believe, it was a campaign that was launched, and now it's been taken over by Every Child a Reader. And so I have the link for you as well on this on the slides, where you can visit that website and you can click to find multiple links to posters of celebrities, celebrity readers, celebrity writers, celebrities in a sense of sports or athletes that kids may know and love, or perhaps actors. And there's a variety of opportunities to think about not only those pre-existing posters, but opportunities to think about how you can take and catch your community of readers in action and post those images to get kids excited about this idea of being caught reading. So lots of great ideas. The best ideas are stolen ones. We know this, right? So when we share our ideas and we celebrate this work, the book love grows, the opportunities continue to grow, and that's how we get better, right? Because we learn together. So I hope that as you are viewing today, or when you're viewing, that you will share the ideas that are working in your buildings. Okay, So let's talk a little bit more. Let's look at some examples, some additional classroom snapshots and ideas, and hopefully my back and forth is working. I recently did see a little twist on the hashtag IMWAYR, and if you don't know that hashtag, that was something that really speaks to the importance of readers making plans and celebrating their reading. And so that was something Jen Vincent, Kelly Moy, Ricky Ginsburg kind of twisted off of a YA adult read blog site, and now people use this hashtag, it's Monday, what are you reading, to celebrate what it is that they're reading. And so I love this image that comes from Lori Barber, a fabulous educator and friend who works now for Anderson Bookshops, and she's the education director, which doesn't that sound like another dream job? And she gets to showcase as well what she's reading. And I just love this spin on the imagery here and the way in which it's labeled for kids to see the abundance of books here, the books that she's read, the book that is a current read, and what's up next. And I know that Kathy Collins speaks of it in Growing Readers. Donna Lynn Miller has spoken of it in The Book Whisperer and Reading in the Wild, but real readers make plans. And so when we give kids the opportunity to see how important it is to think about what's on their TBR, what are they reading, what might they want to read, and can we share in this community where we're celebrating books and all the books that are out there that have the possibility to be that heart print book that may leave that lasting impression and give kids an opportunity to think about the power and the joy of reading. So some no tech ideas. Family phone calls, just having a phone call, kids calling one another, having a phone chain using Voxer, which is, I guess, low tech, having kids create weekly newsletters to share the recommendations. As I mentioned before, bulletin boards that have book racks or what they're currently reading, inviting families for some family engagement, having a family lit night, a family literacy night where kids can do book swaps, talk about their books, talk about their reading. And then of course we have the opportunity to really take advantage of social media. Some of us have Twitter accounts for our classrooms or Instagram or Facebook. Some of us use Class Dojo, some of us use Facebook. And so just to have kids to celebrate what is they're reading, holding up a picture of a book, maybe giving a quick little shout out or a book talk if you'd like to video, and really demonstrating the power of connecting tech with what we're learning and what we're celebrating in school. That transparency of learning is also a key element behind book love. Okay, so I want to get to some of the video clips so we can learn from some mentor authors, and we can, talk about how we can let ReadAlouds do the hard work. And we know that it's beyond that book. It's looking for books that, because the reader writes the story, right? So if we choose books and we're intentional and we know our why, we have an opportunity then to think through with kids and to engage kids in student-led conversations to let us know what are those conversations that are sparked by that read aloud? What are the things they're thinking about that maybe resonate with them, that help them connect or have questions, or perhaps think about ways that it could support how we respond to text, how we respond to one another, how we talk back to text, and how we learn about ourselves, others, and our world. And so I invited Matt de la Pena, who is the award-winning author of Milo Imagines the World, Last Stop on Market Street. He and Christian Robinson, this is their third collaboration. They had the Newbery with Last Stop on Market Street, Carmela's Wishes, and Milo Imagines the World. And the good news, more to come from this dynamic duo. And so I'd like Matt to share with us a little bit about this idea of how we can let books do this hard work and how books are such powerful tools. And I know I've had the honor of working with Matt on several occasions and in different projects. And one thing he said, many things that have stuck with me, but one thing that he says is that books are vehicles for conversations, but the words in the pages that hold the words do not come alive until humans enter the equation. So let's hear a little bit from Matt.
So, I've long been thinking about writing a book that challenges the idea of lazy stereotypes, which is something we all kind of lean on in our lives. I imagine like this. So I think when we see people and we see one little detail of their life, it could be visual, it could be the way they look, the color of their skin, the way they're dressed, tattoos, whatever it is. We take that little piece of information and we sort of speculate, from that point on to kind of build out who we think they are. And then I think what we do is we put them in a box. We have our label in our head, put them up on a shelf, and we think, well, we know who that person is. And we don't have to bring it down and interact with it anymore because I already know who that person is. And I've been long trying to tell a story that challenges that, because I think behind every face you see, there's an entire story that we do not have access to. And it's usually very complex. There's no black and white when it comes to people, right? There's great parts about them. There's things that they wish they could hide. There's insecurities. There are things they're proud about. So I guess what I really was trying to challenge readers to do is kind of interact with people in their lives with generosity and just sort of remain open beyond that first impression. And I think that's an act of bravery to do that. It's not easy to do.
There's so many things that Matt and I talked about in this interview. And I think I want to let him continue just for a moment, because we have this opportunity to learn from his wisdom and the work that he does. And I think it's so interesting when we're talking about book love that we're recognizing the importance of giving kids the opportunity to look deeply inside books, because they are so complex and there's so much more than just one read, one image, or one thought. And when we get kids to do the heavy lifting, the deep conversations, the responses about the joyful and sometimes not joyful struggles that characters go through, I think that that's really powerful work, and it leads to book love, because kids are touched in ways they haven't been before. So I have another little clip that I'd like to share with Matt.
The book goes out into the world, and now it is no longer mine, and I'm no longer important. So at that point, it's all about what readers see. And it's often the case when I go into a classroom, especially, and by the way, I love that you're speaking specifically about the teaching element, because when you unpack a good picture book, and there's so many great ones behind you right now, I'm looking at them. There's so many interesting places you can go. I do that as a parent. But so once the book is out in the world is going to use it as a tool in whatever way it wants. And different families are going to unpack different things. Different classrooms are going to unpack different things. Often, I don't fully understand what my book is about until I walk into a classroom and the kids tell me what it is. And then, of course, the next classroom I go to, I own that and act like that was my intention. But, it's just magical what happens with a young person and a book. It's really, I'll tell you, like JoEllen, one of the things that I think is cool about being a children's author is I think sometimes adults, we tend to gravitate toward books that are going to reinforce our current ideologies, right? So we want to read things and say to ourselves, oh yeah, that's what I think too. But kids haven't solidified what they think yet. So they're just open to going wherever the tool takes, or the book or / tool takes them. And I think that's the magic of books.
Oh, I love that. I think we should get a bumper sticker that says, from Matt de la Pena, it's magical what happens between a book and a kid. I love getting to share that little clip. And I know that it was just a portion of the conversations that we've had, but I think it's important that kids hear and see and know that we value what they see in a book, and we need to learn from them. So, some of the keys I think that go back to takeaways are, yes, we need to know books, but we need to know kids, and we need to help them to find and match with them books that are those books that they are, are finding to be magical. Because as Matt said, we all view books differently and we use them differently. And I think that's part of this evolution of, our teaching and learning through the lens of love. Like, are we using books that are centering kids and centering care? And are we letting those conversations be led by kids? Because that's really essential to this work. And it's exciting, I think, that we have so many wonderful opportunities to use books as tools in this way. And I'm truly grateful for authors and for illustrators and for the creators of these stories, and also for the students as creators of their own stories, because I think that is a key part of this as well. So hopefully that was some opportunity and ideas that have also, maybe been something that you can continue the conversation or share and discuss further with your colleagues, with families, and even with kids. And I would encourage you too, as you're thinking about this work and you're thinking about or inspired to do this work, one thing that I like to do very often is I ask teachers and administrators to host, BYOB, so that we can bring our own books to meetings, or we can have a breakfast with books, and then we can talk about and unpack, what do we see in those pages of those books? What are the things that we're noticing? And encourage kids, depending on the ages of your kids, to do the same work, to do the same thing, so that we can look at and continue to grow in our thinking together, because there isn't just one perfect book, and we want to find that just right book for that just right child. And maybe each book will be used differently because of what we know to be true about our kids and their experiences. And that's the beauty and joy and power of reading. Okay, so hopefully this is some more food for thought from another friend and colleague. And notice that I've left it to say books that, because if we are intentional and we know our why, I think we have to be able to name. So like with Milo, I think that's a great example of books that challenge readers. And I could say, in my experience, this book that Catherine Otoshi has, which she's going to talk about in a moment, Lunch Every Day, is a book that helps kids examine choices, stories, and consider varying perspectives. So as we're going through this, I'm also trying to offer some book stacks and some text sets and some ideas that will help you to think about maybe making connections to books that you might already be familiar with as well. So let's hear a little bit from Catherine now. Bear with me. Yes, I got the right spot.
Yeah, well, the book covers economic disparity. It covers issues of bullying, but also opening up how we see the issue of bullying, and realizing that it's not just one-sided. There's, of course, two sides to every story, and in some ways there's three sides to every story, your side, my side, and the truth in between. And how we tackle such a big issue, we need to keep looking at different sides and different perspectives, and opening up our hearts to how we change things. Bullying happens everywhere, and it's sometimes a private school needs to address the issue in their own way. A public school will address it in another. We're going through COVID, and with the cyberbullying happening, we're always constantly having to look at this very challenging subject matter. But in this particular case, the issue of bullying is from the side of when Jim was a bully, and the reasons kind of behind it. Even above the issues of bullying, though, I hope that after you read the book, hopefully you will, this is really about how a single act of kindness can reverberate throughout even generations, because what happened is afterwards, through what someone did for Jim, impacted it to him in such a degree that again, changed his life. And now he's affecting change through not just hundreds of kids, but, you know, I think it must be thousands and thousands of students, you know, all across Southern California. So it's been really impactful for me because
I love hearing from Catherine, because if you don't know Catherine's work, and I would encourage you to check out some of her other books, she always takes stories and uses really unique emotive art and illustrations. And she does the same in Lunch every day. And in fact, one thing that you will notice when you do have the opportunity to see the book is that all of the characters, there's like a very vague sense of who those characters are. And at the end, when one of the characters has this turning point, then it's like the child is seen. And I just think that when we have books that we can engage in conversations in this way, like Catherine said, there's 3 sides to every story. I think it's true in how we interpret text and how we invite kids to interpret text and take their experience, their backgrounds and their knowledge and understanding to give us insight into that. So when we're reading text and we're having conversations like, what would you do? What do you notice? What do you feel? How would you feel? I think those are some important questions that, you know, can help kids unpack text and also find moments to respond and talk back to struggles, like in this book for bullying, and also the joyful moments in stories. So I love that Catherine gives us that opportunity yet again in a new book. So I think that if we're considering some aspects of book love and the work that we do, we also have to be mindful of the work of Goldie Muhammad in Cultivating Genius, where she reminds us that it is our job as educators to not just teach the skills, but also to teach students to know, validate, and celebrate who they are. So on that note, if we're having some conversations around book love, are we using books that are affirming identities, the multiple identities, demonstrating joyful representation of kids from a variety of backgrounds and experiences? Are we using books that help to celebrate the unique aspects of who we are and where we're from? And so I've given you a clip that you can look at a later date with a book and a stack of books that do the same work, books that help with this conversation, like Always Anjali by Sheetal Sheth, Alma and How She Got Her Name by Juana Martinez Neal, Your Name is a Song by Jamila Tompkins Bigelow and illustrated by Lisa Uribe, and HudaEssa's book, Teach Us Your Name, where she invites kids and also speaks about the importance of kids being teachers. And there's a fabulous TED Talk that I would encourage you to view with your colleagues as well, if you want to continue this conversation. So I do have another clip because I love getting to learn from not just the books, but the authors behind the books as the co-teachers. And so I mentioned Sheetal Sheth, who has the book Always Anjali, and here are some other books that I believe teach kids to own their greatness and to find their greatness. And I have a little clip from Sheetal where she gives us that insight as well. So here we go.
That being said, so Anjali is such a talented tabla player. And unfortunately, tabla is not an instrument that you see a lot of females playing. It's getting better, but it's a heavy male-dominated instrument. And so she is the only girl in her class. She is the best. The boys don't like it. They leave her out of practice sessions. They make fun of her. They tease her. And so she starts, so she messes up on purpose. And she kind of has to, when she realizes that there's now a contest that her teacher is putting out there and she really wants to win, there's a series of events that happen where she comes to the realization where, again, in this book, the line is never dim your light. And so she gets to that after a series of situations. She realizes that she should never feel bad about being good about something or allow anyone to make her feel bad about being good at something. And so she owns her greatness. And at the end, we see her kind of, you'll see, I don't want to give away the ending, but it's a happy ending.
I love, love, love. I get so much joy just out of bringing these authors into the classrooms with kids and having kids hear directly from the creators of these stories. It gives a new layer of understanding, and certainly it does, in my opinion, give a new layer of love to the books as well. So thinking about that, are we using books that help kids own and find their greatness? And I think that's essential to this aspect of joy and power of reading and book love. And so there are so many wonderful books out there, and there are so many wonderful opportunities to continue these conversations. And as I mentioned, it's not always something that we're able to do in the same way where we can have that, live interactive conversation, but we have wonderful tools that bring, read-alouds. There's read-alouds constantly being presented by different publishers, like in this example, another book that celebrates not only reader identity and book love, Luna Loves Library Day, but it's a book that celebrates family structures. And so you'll see a text set of books that do the same work. And Luna Loves Library Day, if you share that with your kids, you'll get to see that story about Luna, how she spends Saturdays at the library with her loving dad, and they search for books that she loves. And it's also just a really beautiful story and testament to, a family and their time together. And so are we looking at books that celebrate the beautiful array of family structures? And are we thinking about how we can have, authors come in and talk to us about everyday experiences and things that kids are passionate about? Like, how about a book that celebrates the power of words and poetry and incorporates sports with that? So I have a little clip, only two more, from my friend Charles Smith Jr., who shares with us his thoughts about the new book, Hoop Kings. So I'm going to share that with you right now, and I'm going to do a new share because that is, oops, wait, maybe not. I will add that clip into your into the slides because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty with that one. So I'm going to just go back to the last clip and the share that I have with Sonia Furuki, whose newest middle grade novel, Yusuf Azim is Not a Hero, is a book that really connects the importance of how we're looking at history across stories and how we're engaging kids in the critical reading and analysis of history from a variety of perspectives. So I'm going to let you learn from Sadia, and then I'll be back.
A lot of kids, and maybe you were like that. I personally loved history as a kid. It was always my favorite subject. I still is. But most young people don't really like history because it's so far removed from their own experiences. And we remember probably 9/11, but kids, for them, it's ancient history, as my daughter once said. So how do you make them excited about that? That's an important thing. And trying to connect. There's I'm gonna read just like one sentence because it's funky, so I kind of forget. Yusuf's uncle says this: history informs the present, my dear nephew, and so it affects the future. And that sounds like something you would like see on a quote somewhere on Instagram, but it's so true, right? It's true, but we don't understand it even as adults when we fight wars and we think the outcome will be different than the history of wars since we started making weapons. It's just learning about history, learning about what happens when around us, what happened a long time ago. Those are really important things. And I hope that with books like these and other historical novels, you can make history interesting. So, that can be definitely a tool to help kids understand that we're not just learning history in school because it's a curriculum and don't care about it. I think that if you include fiction as part of your studies for kids who are learning history in whatever subject, whatever topic, whatever theme, that can make it come alive. And if it comes alive, they can imagine themselves in those situations, and then hopefully they can do better with their own lives.
I'm so grateful for all of the insight from these authors. And I think, bringing that conversation, another bumper sticker, right, from Sadia, and how history informs the past and so it affects the future. And I think when we have stories and they come alive and stories come alive, I think that is what impacts kids as well. So the powerful stories that we use are those stories that can influence and impact book love. I started to mention, and I had a little technical glitch, and I apologize about that. So far, hopefully the rest has been going smoothly on your end. And if not, I apologize. No stress doing these videos, of course. But I mentioned that it's in many ways, we're not always able to have that quick video from, a personal connection to an author. I hope that you can, and I hope you invite them in and follow authors on Twitter and on Instagram. And there's so many great opportunities. But I also want to point out that Bookmarks, which debuted in September last year from Netflix, they, in partnership with Marley Dias and Tiffany Haddish, the executive producer, put together a series of videos and read-alouds with celebrating Black voices, their creators, and celebrity readers when the actual author or illustrator is not available, to spark kid-friendly conversations about empathy and equality and equity and self-love and anti-racism. And I think it's really another tool that will help bring ripples of book love into your classroom. So I have the clip for you in that as well, where you can get to see Jackie Woodson read from The Day You Begin. And since I promised, some insight or tips on tools and new titles, I want you to be aware of another title on the way, which is The Year We Learned to Fly, the companion to The Day You Begin with Jackie Woodson and Rafael Lopez. And I'm so excited for that one as well. And I hope that, as the new books come out, you continue to share those books that get you excited, that get your kids excited, because it does matter. So I want to just connect a few final thoughts with how everything we do can have book love, not only in our classroom, but with our PD, that we can connect book love and PD love in trying to, get some enthusiasm, engagement, and really excitement for this work. And so I would love to share with you, some resources that are available and that are free, so that if you don't have the opportunity to talk with a librarian or a reading advisor about those new titles, you can explore some sites like James Patterson has Read Kiddo Read, of course, making use of Libby and Overdrive, that app to get kids to collect books on their bookshelves, or looking at the site, what should I read next, which often recommends books, and the exciting opportunity to explore Bookalicious, which is the new online digital independent bookstore. There are tons of free resources on here to help students create wish lists, to help teachers preview and curate collections. There's an opportunity for kids to write reviews, make plans for reading, and yes, create Bookmojis. I love the Bookmoji because you get an opportunity to collect from a variety of spots on the website where you can add things that you are interested in, or that you love, or that reflect who you are in terms of your identity, your passions. And when you do that and you think about that, I love this quote from Lois Bridges that speaks to this idea. When you have the agency to choose your own books, craft a reading life that aligns with your identity, and craft a reading life that aligns with your identity, that is equity in action. And I don't think kids are given as much of the opportunity to do that. So books at Bookalicious are available for kids to preview. They can create wish lists, and they can actually have fun connecting the tech world of avatars that then reflect and recommend books based on what kids have chosen. So I want to just touch on that so people will hear about it, know about it. And I encourage you to follow Bookalicious to learn more about them and the site, and think about the ways that you can connect with phenomenal educators behind the scenes at Bookalicious, like Frankie Siberson and Lindsay Birkins. And they are hosting some Bookalicious 101 workshops where they'll actually go through the website with you and your students, and they'll show you how you can sign up, how you can create a Bookmoji, how you can explore the site. And I do have a link to the site on here as well. Let me just pull up so you can take a quick peek, and you'll notice that I have to go back to, here we go. When you go to the home page, it has your Bookmoji, your avatar. And as you go through, you can scroll down and you can click on different categories of books. And every time you make a book suggestion, or if it gives you a book recommendation based on your avatar, it then will have a book alike. So if you see something that you're interested and you want to read, or you want to add to your shelf, it will then recommend other books that are like that book. So here's a great book, Way Past Jealous. That's a series of titles that look at emotions and managing emotions. And then you could quickly click over and see other books that deal with social themes or school and education. And it's really a great way to personalize and to set up reading goals and reading plans for your kids. So I hope that you'll find out more about that and that you'll check that out. And then one more PD option that I think is so powerful, because and it's in partnership with Bookalicious. There's a group called Bring Me a Book. And in Bring Me a Book, they have worked with a team of educators to provide, book abundance, where they recognize the opportunity to first, of course, put books in the hands of kids, to connect home school libraries, to have an opportunity for that reading agency that connects identity, book choice, and really giving kids an opportunity to think about books they can and want to read. And when you go to the site, and I hope that you will, at Bring Me a Book, there are a variety of toolkits with a variety of essays, personal essays, professional resources that support a variety of topics, pedagogies, and practices that are free and accessible to families, teachers, administrators, really like little PD in a box kind of a thing, where you can start a conversation, explore with additional resources. I can show you one or two and highlight a few. For example, when you scroll on here, and hopefully this is all going through, because I hate when I switch over from one screen to the other that's not already set up. So I apologize. Here we go. I'm going to click on, here we go. I think that worked. Okay, so if you go to the toolkit, you can see a variety of individuals who have given us some food for thought, where they present an idea, a belief, a practice, a pedagogy that's really powerful in influencing kids as lifelong readers. Like here's Lindsay Birkins, who has a fabulous toolkit about incidental diversity and the importance of giving kids access to books that are, demonstrating a variety of characters depicted in communities, in stories where it's not a non-issue book. It's just diversity in the sake of the beauty of the human experience in everyday life. Or you might go and find the excerpt from Cass and Cornelius Minor on joy as a methodology, where we can focus on, how are we using books and kids as the curriculum to celebrate joyful learning opportunities. And there's so many, and I would encourage you to look at those on your own. Frankie Siberson has one in here as well on supporting families as literacy mentors. And really the list goes on and on and on. And I encourage you to make use of these resources. They're free. They are book love in action. And I want to just leave you with a final thought, which is from Shelley Harwain, and you can actually access an essay that she has on Bring Me a Book. And I think it's a great question for us to end with, and to maybe take back to our buildings as we're trying to spread book love and PD love. And so I'll just pull that up for a moment for you now. Here we go. I said Shelley Harwain, and that's not the Shelley Harwain one. Well, I'm getting back to the Shelley Harwain one. But Reedy Ratman said a great thing too. Never doubt that one caring person committed to providing choice and access to interesting books can transform a child's life. Amen to that. Shelley's question is, are our practices, our behaviors, are they examples of individuals leading passionate lives that are passionate about reading? Oops. Okay, so I fixed that. The Shelley Harwain quote that I wanted to leave us with is, do my instructional practices lead to and resemble the behaviors of passionate, thoughtful, and accomplished readers? If the answer to that is yes, folks, I think we have the opportunity to really leave our kids with ripples of book love. So I thank you for joining today. I hope that you found it to be helpful. I hope you were able to get some ideas that you are excited about, that maybe resonate with what you already do, or perhaps have given you new food for thought. I can't wait to hear from you if you check out Bookalicious, if your kids create wish lists and Bookmojis. And I also would love to hear from you how your PD is rolling out, if perhaps you're benefiting from some of those free resources to connect home, school, literacy love. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the sessions and stay connected. Bye, everybody.